All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you again so very much for sitting down and joining me today. It's so very nice to meet you. If I have not already met you in some way, shape, or form, my name is Ryan, and I hope that you're doing good. I'm doing good. We're going to go through have a more relaxed approach, a more kind of sit back. Well, it's not entirely relaxed because I've got a small window before I go in for work, so we're going to try to get this done. Because obviously with now being back at work, the time for filming is shrunken a little bit. We're going to be doing this during the day. We've got some artificial light, some natural light. I think it's working pretty good, but I got it a pretty good time because when I tried to film it earlier, my neighbor decided that it was the best time to mow the lawn. So I think that happened on one of my other videos, and then there's a couple other videos where you can hear my oldest's her bedtime music, like because she's got an old iPad, and we make like these playlists on Spotify, whatever song that she's obsessed with at the time to fall asleep to. We create these playlists where it just goes over and over and over again. I think on one of them, you could hear this, like, if you ever hear this weird, like, high-pitched bell sound coming from one of my other videos, that's what it was. But we're going to be going through 8 titles here that I have recently watched. We're going to be combing through the watch pile. We're not going to comb the desert. We're going to comb through the watch pile. So we're going to just talk about these at length, the length that I'm able to right now. Hopefully you're enjoying this movie shelf over here, which was it's big thanks to Heath and Bree at Serial at Midnight for putting out the video showing how they made these, and a huge thank you to my wife for aiding in doing this, because if it was not for her, you would not have this at all. And as you can see, we've got, so you can definitely tell if you can see a couple of things kind of poking out. That's because we have stuff to go through today. So these are not necessarily in the order that I watched them, but this is kind of just the order that I pulled them out of, because the order doesn't really matter. So we're gonna go ahead and let's take a sip of some water. Fantastic, and let's kind of go right into it. So this first one is a Mill Creek release, one of the retro VHS slip lines, and that is, what is the year on this? I 1985, I was going to say 3. 1985's The New Kids with Lori Loughlin from Becky from Full House. I think her name was Rebecca. Joey's wife, Uncle Joey's wife. No, that's not Joey, Jesse. Joey was the Robin Williams cartoon uncle. Okay, so I'm getting off on a tangent. So this is The New Kids. So The New Kids is, like I said, it's a 1985 thriller directed by Sean S. Cunningham. This is right off of the heels of Friday the 13th, and directly following this, he is going to produce House. And you're not really seeing either one of those two movies in this particular one. So The New Kids follows 2 siblings who have recently lost their parents and moved to Florida to live with their uncle. And her uncle is this sort of like, he's got this, he's almost like, he's not really quite like a get-rich-quick scheming kind of person, but he's got this great idea of taking this dilapidated Christmas-themed theme park, the Santa's Funland, and turning it around and making a huge, huge profit. So they're going to live with him, obviously not in the best conditions, especially from what they're used to, but that's family. And so they try to integrate themselves into this new town and come across this gang of they're the local bullies. They're these kind of like hick redneck bullies, and it becomes a very different movie from where we start. And that sort of played, what I really enjoyed is that that's really sort of played from the very, very beginning, because in the very beginning of the film we've got because they're army brats, and the very beginning of it has their father, who's isn't that Tom Atkinson or Tom Atkins? I can't remember, sorry. It's not really important because of the fact that we get this quick montage, this like training montage, and it's this really, energetic music, really, really dancey, really fun, really lighthearted, and then they die. It's off screen, obviously. They find out that they were killed in a car crash, and that's sort of really showcasing the kind of turns that this movie takes, and that's kind of what I really enjoy, because we're seeing this really fun, very 80s training montage to where when it comes to the news of their parents' death, it's a gut punch. You know, it's a gut punch. And that's really sort of how the whole movie is kind of designed, because there's a lot of typical teen drama sort of thing. Like, it's definitely not the sort of thing that you have not seen before. We've got, you know, the bullies, and we've got these new kids, and there are scenes of them besting the bullies, and that's really how the majority of the film, or especially the first half, really, I guess you could say the first 2 acts of the movie are playing out, where it is literally them adjusting to this new life and having to deal with the bullies. And the ringleader of the bullies, Dutra, which is a name I've never heard anybody called before, which is played by a very young James Spader. And he's fantastic. He really is, because he's very menacing in this, and especially for being so young. And there's a couple of things that you can see with the gang where they are definitely prone to violence. You know, there's a couple, like there is, you know, the king of a car, but pretty tame or juvenile type of things for the bullies to be doing. But you can definitely see this darkness around them, especially in Dutra, James Spader's character. You can definitely see the darkness in him. And they're kind of peppering it through. But then really once I'm sorry, I can't remember, Lauren, who's played by Shannon Presby, the brother. When Lauren bests the bullies, you know, I mean, that's, you know, it's like the parking lot fight, everybody's cheering. That's usually going to be the end. That is, you know, your climax. You know, the heroes have bested the villains. But that is the turning point for this movie, to where it becomes a very, very different movie, and it becomes very horror-esque, and it's, you know, it's absolutely wild. Sorry, the cat is deciding now to use the scratching post right at this time. I apologize. I'm gonna try to talk over it because we don't have a whole lot of time. Oh, and I'm shaking the camera. But that's really the turning point to this movie, and it becomes incredibly dark, and it gets very, it becomes a home invasion type of movie. It becomes almost pseudo slasher in a way, just by the tone and the setting and the feeling of the movie. Really enjoyed this movie. It looks great. There's obviously no special features on here. Here is the actual Blu-ray artwork on there. As you can see, you can kind of see James Spader's character right there, and that's a big shot of more of the Hicks. Like, I mean, I remember Dutra. There is I think there's a Joe Bob. Is there a Gunner? I think there's a Gunner. Like, really typical Hick names, borderline Hicksploitation. But yeah, Dutra. That's a really weird. I've never heard. It's beside the point. But I was on board for everything in this movie because I really enjoyed the characters of Abby and Lauren. And you want to see them succeed. You want to see them, you're invested in them, because, and I think it's the beginning of the movie that really plays the strongest part in that. But that is the new kids. So moving right along, this is one that I watched with my wife, and we both really enjoyed it. This was a Dollar Tree pickup for me. One that I had seen on previous Dollar Tree hauls, and then a couple sales back, I ended up finding it, thankfully. And this is Spike Jonze's Her with Joaquin Phoenix. This is a really good movie. I really enjoy Spike Jonze's work. Being John Malkovich is one of my all-time favorite movies. And this is a love story, but it is done in a much different way. This is a very near future, a very believable future, just more AI integrated. And we have Joaquin Phoenix's character. What was his name? Theodore. Yeah, it was not a common name. Theodore, who begins a relationship with an AI. And it turns out to be, it almost kind of becomes something that he's not the only one that is doing this, because they have these AI companions for friends and just somebody to talk to, because he's off the heels of a very bad divorce. And so this is somebody that he can kind of connect to and talk to, somebody to kind of feel fulfilled, especially when he's alone. And obviously the relationship progresses into a romance, into falling in love with his AI. And the AI is voiced by Scarlett Johansson. And his ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, because they haven't signed the divorce papers yet, is Rooney Mara. And that was one thing that I was actually a little bit, it was a big disappointment, because I really don't have a lot of negative things to say about this film. If one disappointment, though, is that I was kind of upset that Rooney Mara, the majority of her scenes are flashbacks. There's really only one scene where she has a pretty good dialogue with Joaquin Phoenix, because a couple of the flashbacks she's talking in, but most of them are actually silent flashbacks, which is really kind of upsetting, just because I really like Rooney Mara, so I wish she would have gotten a little bit more screen time, but it's not about her. At the end of the day, it's about Theodore and the AI Samantha. This is what I really enjoy about this movie. Like, I really enjoy the world that Spike Jonze has created, because it is incredibly believable. And that's the most important thing when you're having anything, when you're basically giving us a love story, that if you just took out the idea of Samantha being an AI and you just implanted it as it's Scarlett Johansson. It's Scarlett Johansson, like, we don't have this disembodied voice. It is Scarlett Johansson on scene having a relationship with Joaquin Phoenix. It would be a traditional love movie, a romance movie, a love story. But having it be an AI, that's why I think that it is very, very smart and very, very clever, because it's believable. It is entirely believable. The premise of it being an AI or a program, there's many, many times where you kind of get lost in the movie and you forget that this is not a person that he is having a relationship with. So I really, really enjoyed this movie, and there are some, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there are some traditional scenes that would happen in a love story, and you get so invested in these characters and this story and this world, that when they happen, to me, they are 20 times more impactful than a traditional love story. It's just something about the way that he has concocted the story and the way that these threads are interwoven, that it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a very, very good movie, and I highly, highly recommend it, because it is a love story, but I feel like it's so much more. I really, really do feel like it is so much more. So this next one that we're going to run into before I take a sip of water is going to be, this actually comes from ClassicFlix, and this is the second in the ClassicFlix did a like a box set, or like a 3-movie set of Anthony Mann and John Alton films. John Alton being the cinematographer, the director of photography, and Anthony Mann being the director. I'll say a little bit more about this. I have one of them, T-Men, which is on loan to my dad right now, because he really loves noirs, and I think he'd really enjoy T-Men, because it's a great movie. And there is this one, and then there is Raw Deal, and I'm pretty sure that set is gone now. And Raw Deal is still available. If it's still available when ClassicFlix happens to do another sale, I'll pick it up then, because I'm really upset that I didn't get it. Because Raw Deal by itself is a fairly pricey film. But this is He Walked by Night. And this is a noir film, but this movie. So T-Men is going to be like your traditional, or I guess it's hard to say traditional noir, because the noir umbrella is very, very big. Like, you're not going to get wet at all out in the rain with the noir umbrella. But I guess when you were going to think about noir, I think T-Men would fit more into that mental picture than He Walked by Night. Because He Walked by Night has Richard Basehart, which this is his 3rd film, and he is phenomenal, where he plays a cop killer, essentially. The very, very beginning of the movie is he guns down a patrolman sitting in his vehicle. And the whole movie is a police procedural to try and track down this killer who is constantly evading the police. He is elusive. He is always one step ahead of them. And in this, and funny enough, this is actually going to be the film that would inspire Dragnet, because the creator of Dragnet actually does have a bit part in this as a forensic scientist. And guys, this film really took me by surprise because it's just so good. So Richard Basehart's character, now, the reason that he is always one step ahead of them, you get to kind of see that a little bit. He's very methodical, and he's obviously a sociopath. He's a psychopath. And that's what I really kind of enjoy, is because it's more of a character piece to me. Yes, it is a police procedural because there are plenty of scenes. Like there's some plenty great scenes, like when they're trying to come up with the sketch from all of these people that have seen him, and they're trying to kind of put together a composite sketch of what he looks like. And it's always fantastic. And the reason he's always one step ahead of me, we see a little bit of that, like when he's changing out license plates, and he'll change his MO, because they have a bit on that where they're talking about his MO and kind of what to look for, and he completely changes it. And that's what I think is absolutely so fantastic. But he's chilling. Richard Basehart is absolutely chilling because he really doesn't have a whole lot of speaking parts. He does so much more with his face and his eyes alone, to where he really doesn't have to talk. The only real talking comes from, the majority of how he makes his money is he steals electronic equipment and sells it for consignment. That's how he makes his money. And that's the majority of the interaction or the dialogue that's coming from Richard Basehart's character. But man, he doesn't have to talk at all, because it's like you could just, you can't take those scenes out, but if you were, there would be nothing lost to his character. And the reason that I was saying that, a reason why this is in the Anthony Mann collection is because it is credited to Alfred Werker, who directed the majority of this movie. And however, it came out in many years later through candid interviews that Anthony Mann did direct quite a few pivotal parts, at least 2 or 3 pivotal parts to this movie. And you can see it, because if you've seen T-Men, you can see the tones, because the tone will shift entirely. Like, let's think of the procedural scenes. Like, for instance, I mentioned the sketch. When they're putting together the sketch on this overhead projector, based on what everybody's saying, they've got like a bunch of different eyes that they're just overlaying onto a face where people say, no, they were a little beadier. Okay, yes, that's it. And then we'll take when they're trying to kind of bust him in like this almost sting operation, and they are completely different tonally. Not different to the point where you can just feel like it's an emotionally different scene, but completely different because it doesn't feel like the same movie that we were just seeing. And that's because that is Anthony Mann's direction at the helm. And obviously with John Alton's use of light, where a lot of times it's just being used by a flashlight. Like when they're going into the underground sewer tunnels of, this is Los Angeles. God, those scenes are fantastic. Where we're just using flashlights. We are just using flashlights, and it is phenomenal. There is very minimum music in this. I know there are some, but I honestly cannot even think of a lot of instances where there is music. It's mostly ambient sound, and that's what works so much more. Like the entire climax is ambient sound. Guys, you really need to see this movie. And coming through ClassicFlix as well, there is a fantastic booklet that has a whole essay on it, written by Max Alvarez, which is absolutely fantastic. And then there's a short featurette of behind the scenes, talking with some filmmakers and film historians and critics, all about the legacy of He Walked by Night. And an interesting thing, you can find this out from the very end of the booklet. Another thing to definitely attribute it to Anthony Mann is because there is one scene in this that is directly lifted from T-Men. Like it is literally a scene from T-Men that is put into the film. So definitely recommend He Walked by Night. All right, and these next 3 are all coming from when Grindhouse Video had their Blue Underground sale. and we'll kind of go through these all together since we're running at right now at this time 21 minutes, and you know, I'm definitely not trying to cut it short, but I don't want it to be obviously overly long, because I mean the review videos, when you look at view counts, it's obviously not what the vast majority of people want, but I say phooey. I say phooey. We're doing review videos anyways, because what's the point of buying if we're not going to talk about them, right? I love hearing people's opinions about them, and hopefully you do too. So we're going to go to these three. These three would be Maniac, Zombie, and let me make sure I cover that up, the Toolbox Murders. So all of these were first-time watches for me. Now, let's start with Maniac. Maniac, I had seen the remake with Elijah Wood, and a lot of people would say, I've always kind of heard there is no Maniac without Joe Spinell. And to me, that's definitely not true, because of the fact that I've seen the Elijah Wood remake. That was the first thing that I actually watched, my first introduction into Maniac. And the Elijah Wood remake is gimmicky, because it's all done literally through Elijah Wood's eyes. So it's all very gimmicky, but it's very fun. It's a very good movie. I enjoyed it very much, but I really now honestly see what people are talking about when they say there is no Maniac without Joe Spinell. So this is, I was really blown away by this, and really kind of surprised that it'd take me this long to see any of these movies, but this one in particular. So Maniac, if you are unaware, just like I was, Maniac is literally about it's a maniac. It's about a killer. It's directed by William Lustig, I believe written by William Lustig as well. No, okay, it was C.A. Rosenberg and Joe Spinell that did the screenplay. My apologies. Special effects done by Tom Savini, with a cameo appearance by Tom Savini where and kind of cool, he literally gets to blow up his own head, which is really, really cool. There's a really good interview with Tom Savini in here. I love hearing Tom Savini talk. He always has a lot of really interesting things to say, a lot of fun things to say. He always looks back very fondly on his career. And so Joe Spinell is playing Frank Zito, and Frank is this very highly disturbed individual. A lot of childhood trauma that is never fully explained, but enough is peppered in throughout the movie to where you can kind of put things together and understand what's going on. So his main target is women. As you can definitely kind of see with childhood, he's got a lot of mother issues, and there's a lot of issues with keeping beauty intact, and keeping women for himself to where they'll never leave him. And that's really sort of his issue, because of the fact that when he kills somebody, he usually, or at least I know it definitely in one instance you can see, where he scalps the victim and nails the scalp onto a mannequin. It is absolutely horrifying. And Joe Spinell's portrayal is, when I can say that, I can tell what they mean by there's no Maniac without Joe Spinell. His portrayal of Frank Zito is, like, I thought Elijah Wood was really good and creepy, but Joe Spinell is terrifying. This is obviously post-Rocky, and this is not what I would have thought Joe Spinell being in. He is absolutely horrifying, because there are so many scenes when it's like, I've seen that guy. Like, not Joe Spinell specifically, but the character of Frank Zito, when you're just kind of seeing him out and about, it's like, I've seen that guy. I've seen that guy 1,000 times. You know, I'll probably see that guy at work today. And I think that's what makes the movie so much more horrifying, is his portrayal and the way he can shift. That's what I think is great about the portrayal of not only Joe Spinell's performance, but of Frank Zito's character. And the special effects, the gore effects by Tom Savini are delightful. They are absolutely fantastic, because this is a very violent movie. I loved it. I really, it's a shame that it took me this long to watch it, but I absolutely loved it. There's a bunch of special features on here, and I'm pretty sure most of these special features are actually on the 4K release, with a lot of interviews on here. There's a fantastic interview that I know is also on the 4K that is about the creators of the song Maniac that was in Flashdance, and the story about how that actually came to be, where William Lustig is talking to them, because of the fact that there was always rumors that it was inspired by Maniac. And It's a really great story. It really, really is. But I think the best thing that's on here is there is a 7-minute short. A 7-minute short that was a promo reel for Maniac 2. I believe it's titled Mr. Robbie. And I really wish that we would have gotten that. It wasn't that long after that Joe Spinell had passed, that we lost Joe Spinell. But I think that if Maniac 2 had been made, I think it may have almost been better than Maniac. Just because based on what, if they were really going to fully go in on what Maniac 2 or Mr. Robbie was going to be, then it was obviously not going to be Frank Zito. But if you watch that short because of the fact that there is so much Frank Zito in this character of Mr. Robbie. And it's a shame that we didn't get it because this is an absolute masterpiece. The next one is Fulci's Zombie. And Zombie, most people are going to be very familiar with, it was Zombie 2 because it was incorrectly and falsely marketed as the sequel to, or the unofficial sequel to Romero's Dawn of the Dead, much to Romero and Fulci's disdain. But this is one I had always seen this post. I've seen this poster since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And it took me until I was 28 years old to watch this film. And, you know, and I'm not even, I mean, I guess I could say I'm ashamed, but I'm not. I'm not ashamed because this movie was awesome. This was a fantastic movie. The gore effects are definitely kind of what you're coming in here for. But I think that because it's a great zombie film, we have fantastic scenes. I mean, the splinter scene is gut churning because it's done so differently than usually anything involving eyeballs. We have more context and interpretation, like sort of we're gonna let our mind piece together what happened with a lot of cutaways. Fulci's like, no, we are going to zoom in on this. This camera's not going away. And that makes it all the more gut-churning. There's a lot of great throat rips, a lot of good disemboweling, very, very good gore effects. And that's obviously what you're coming into this movie for, but I think that definitely, I think the story is actually also very, very good. It's because there's this mystery element to it of what's going on. And what's going on is never 100% fully explained, but there is enough context to tell you, to where you can piece together what happened with involving voodoo. And so we definitely do have a little bit of, there's definitely a little bit of like the cannibal exploitation movement that's influenced on here, coming from like filmmakers like Diodaro. This is a bad time, but I don't have time to look it up. I think it's the Cannibal Holocaust, which I have not seen that movie, and to be quite frank, I really don't want to. But there's a lot of mysterious elements with Zombie, and that's what I think is actually, to me, a lot more enjoyable. Plus, there is a zombie that bites a shark. There's a zombie that bites a shark, and if that doesn't sell you on this movie, if you've never watched it, then I really don't know what else would. It's pretty barren for special features. I know that... I believe the 4K is going to have a lot more special features on it. There is an interview with, an introduction with Guillermo del Toro, who's telling you that you're going to see things that you've never ever seen before. And that is 100% accurate because this movie is 1979. And, this would have been before Cannibal Holocaust then. I believe Cannibal Holocaust was like 84, 85, so then I misspoke. Maybe somebody can correct me. But yeah, you're still going to see things that you've never seen before. And zombies are really presented in a way that that nobody would have seen before to this point, and still has not been fully utilized because these zombies, they are unstoppable. I mean, obviously not unstoppable, but I mean, they don't care. I mean, we've got zombies that can walk underwater. You know, this is definitely like a precursor to kind of things that you're going to see in, let's say, like the Dawn of the Dead remake, 28 Days Later. These ideas that Fulci had worked with in this are going to be used, but I don't think they're used enough it makes the zombies so much more horrifying because of the fact that we've become desensitized to the idea of the zombie. So absolutely loved this film. And then this last one from Blue Underground is the Toolbox Murders. Now, the Toolbox Murders was this one really took me by surprise. Now, it's an exploitation film because one of the things in here, there's one interview on here, but there is a trailer, and the trailer really shows you the exploitation factor of this film, because all of the really the murders, the Toolbox Murders, is really the first half of the film, and that's what got those butts in the seats. Like, they're gonna see this crazy, this crazy lunatic killer, who is going to be killing people that he deems immoral. I believe in the very beginning of it, he's listening to like this crazy televangelist on the radio. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a televangelist, but you understand what I mean. I'm pretty sure that he says, like, if it goes against God, rip it out, or something like that. So he is killing those who he deems immoral. And there's a lot of fantastic kill scenes with a nail gun, with a drill, knives, because he's a handyman. He's using the tools of his profession. And that's what got those butts in the seats. But the second half of the film is completely different, because the second half of the film is showing us more background into why this isn't just some random killer, but we want to know. Obviously, we have the immorality factor, but why is he, like, what is it about people acting a little risque? What is it about somebody's sexuality that is triggering him to kill, besides the fact that he deems it immoral? And that's what I really, really enjoyed. This is a great movie. The first half, the exploitation kills are amazing. And then the second half, where it turns into a much more psychologically dense film, a kidnapping film, absolutely loved it. Could not highly recommend the Toolbox Murders enough if you have not seen it. So we got two more, and we're doing good enough on time, so we'll try to wrap this through. This one is one that I had picked up from Jeff, Collecting with Hammer on YouTube. And I had gotten this one because I wanted to see the sequel, which I have, and I wanted to revisit this one because I saw this when it came out back in 2007, and I thought this might be one that my wife would enjoy as well. And this is The Strangers, one of the quintessential home invasion films of the early aughts. My wife, she didn't enjoy it like I thought she was going to. I think she liked it enough for what it was. I remember loving this movie when it first came out, and upon my rewatch, I just thought it was okay. I really don't have the same love for it that I did before. I'm definitely interested in watching the sequel because, one, how divisive the sequel is, because they literally just took The Strangers and put them from one style of movie, one subgenre of horror, into another. And I think that's a great idea, because you could keep the legacy of The Strangers going with something like that. I think that's a great idea, but not everybody feels the same way, but maybe we'll see when I watch it. But The Strangers, so yeah, I really did not enjoy it near as much as I did when it first came out. Because, and I'll tell you why, my wife was very much on the same mindset of it too, is that the idea of The Strangers is 20 times more frightening than the movie itself. The movie, to me, is really not scary at all. One of the scariest things, actually, to me, the only horrifying thing, is in the very beginning of the movie, where after we've had the knocking on the door for the second time, and the wife is, not the wife, because in the character development in the beginning of the film, but the female lead is by herself, and she's in the kitchen, and the male stranger, it's kind of this wider shot of the house where you can see the kitchen. She's in the kitchen, you can see the living room, and he just kind of walks into the frame, and stands there. That is the most horrifying thing in the whole movie. But then, sorry for the quick cut, the camera actually fell. But what was I saying? The movie itself after that is it's really just okay. It's pretty baseless. There's not a lot to it, really, because again, I think that the idea of the film is 100 times more scarier than the film itself. It's the whole, why are you doing this? Why not? That's what I think is more scary. And another thing, it's gonna make me sound like an old man, but this, I guess, because at the time you were seeing this a lot more at the time that this was created, and but it's that over the shoulder camera. Like, if you're gonna have, and well, okay, not the majority of the film, because in the majority of the film, once the energy is going, once the creepiness is starting to come up, slap that camera over the shoulder. Let's run with these guys. Let's get the adrenaline of the audience going. But in the whole beginning, when you're trying to set up these characters, which quite frankly really don't care about, which is a shame. To where it really didn't give me anything to root for. I mean, yeah, you want to see them live, but you know in the very beginning of the film that it's not going to pan out well. So you've given us nobody to root for because we know it's not going to end well. And so that really kind of brings the whole character development part of it to a halt for me. So when you're going to have this serious conversation, let's get somebody that can hold a camera steady, or at least let's not, give Charlie horses to the cameraman. It makes me sound like an old man saying that, but that was so distracting to me, and it really took me out of that. But yeah, whatever. Did not really enjoy the movie as much as I did before. And I've heard some people really kind of give some grief to the whole inspired by true events on there. I don't really understand that, because it's not lying. It's not lying. It's not based on a true story. It's inspired by true events. I know some of them are from the writer and director's childhood break-ins that were happening in his neighborhood at the time. But the majority of it, the inspiration, it's Manson. It's Manson. You can see Manson all over this. And so yeah, don't understand why there's that bit of animosity towards that, but be that as it may. The last film that we're going to go into, and we'll go through this really, really quickly so we can kind of get out of here, because I know you guys got things to do. I got to get to work. But I'm having a great time doing this. This is very, very relaxing. Tammy and the TRex. This was picked up in the Vinegar Syndrome sale haul. I did not get the 4K because I was being cheap, and I regret it now. But this movie is so much fun. This was a video store rental that I had seen, the PG-13 cut, where Paul Walker's character gets mauled by a lion at the Wild Animal Park, the weirdest park. It's interesting because the director was an animal tamer. It's one of the jobs that he had done in film, so it definitely kind of makes sense why they're going to put that in there. There's this mad scientist who ends up taking his brain and implanting it in this giant animatronic T-Rex, and Paul Walker's character then goes on a rampage and starts killing the bullies and trying to get to his to Denise Richards, his girlfriend, and who is then obviously trying to help him and get him back in his body, or a body. And this movie is a blast. I think it's a good movie. Because it is exactly kind of what you're going to think that it is. It's very silly. It's very over the top. And it's just an immense amount of fun. And what's great, though, is because I had obviously seen the goreless version. Like if you had seen this film before in a VHS store or a video store, that was what you saw. And so it makes it to where when the gore happens, it's so much more like, whoa, like that. It really kind of throws you off and really kind of adds that other layer of fun into this. This is a bonkers movie. I think the performances are absolutely fantastic. Everybody does really well, because this is Paul Walker's, I think, really like first big role. Definitely Denise Richards. I think Paul Walker actually has like 2 credits prior to this. But the best obviously is Terry Kaiser, because that's really what makes it the movie that it is Terry Kaiser's performance of the Mad Doctor, the Mad Scientist. He's fresh off the heels of playing a dead man for the second time at Weekend at Bernie's 2, and he's hilarious. He is absolutely hilarious. The movie is gory. The movie is silly. This is one that if you get this, you are not going to have a bad time. This is fun written all over it. And the special features on here, there's a lot of fantastic interviews on here as well. One of the best interviews actually is George Pilgrim, who plays Billy, because all of the characters are literally people we have seen 1,000 times before. But if you want to see a little bit of dirt on the movie and people maybe not always talking as fondly about their experience, watch the George Pilgrim interview. Really, the iconic testicular standoff scene, how that was just thrown at them at the last minute. Very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. But guys, thank you so much for sitting down and going through these films that I had recently watched today. come into the watch pile for me today. I will say that. If you enjoyed this film, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for more additional content and be notified for when it comes out. If you have a comment or an opinion on anything I've watched or talked about today, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. All of my information for social media and links can be found in the description box down below. But other than that, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and I also hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.